what's going on, guys? It's J Mass, and I'm back again with another dope New England adventure. And as you guys can see, it has officially snowed here in New England. And on this very cold winter morning, we're going to be exploring an abandoned set of historic ruins. Now, I'm currently here in the city of New Britain, Connecticut, located right outside of the capital city of Hartford, Connecticut. And here in New Britain, we're going to be checking out an abandoned set of ruins that once belonged to a very historic and influential family. Now, this is actually the Stanley family. They're one of the original settlers here in New Britain, dating all the way back to 1644. And we'll get into more of their history, but what you need to know about this mansion itself is that it was one of many homes owned by the influential Stanley family here in New Britain. Now, this is one of the best preserved set of ruins. We don't know the exact year it was built, but it was built sometime in the 1800s. And unfortunately, a devastating fire destroyed it in 1940, leaving behind only these ruins. However, this is located on public property. In fact, it's in between two public parks, both named after the Stanley family. There's the Stanley Quarter Park and the A.W. Stanley Park. Now, I believe this one is in the A.W. Stanley Park, but I actually parked at the Stanley Quarter Park. But they're both located right next to each other, and these ruins, once owned by the Stanley family, are located in between them. And that's what we're going to be checking out today. Again, I will get into more history of the Stanley family itself, but I'm really excited to check out these ruins. It's a place I've known for quite some time now. But as always, guys, my name is J Mass. If you love urban exploration, checking out abandoned sites, traveling New England and beyond, I'm always doing that on the channel, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. I want to give a shout out to all my channel members right here. You can see all their names. You guys are awesome, and I would love it if you too became a member as well. You'd be joining them in every single video I post, and you'd be helping me in the channel directly. Or you could follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But yeah, guys, let's get started and explore the Old Stanley Mansion Ruins here in New Britain, Connecticut. While I don't know too much about the mansion ruins itself, I do know quite a bit about the Stanley family. So we're going to get into that and explore these ruins. Let's get started. All right, guys, let's get started and explore the abandoned Old Stanley Mansion Ruins here in the city of New Britain, Connecticut. And as you can already see, this is a pretty full set of ruins. Of course, you got the fireplace and chimney right here. You got the abandoned stone walls where you can tell the windows once stood. And I will give you a brief view into here, although we will get into more detail about it later. But here's the interior of the ruins. You can see this is where the basement once was. So that's pretty cool, a pretty full set of ruins. As many longtime viewers of the channel know, I've filmed at many abandoned and historic ruins, and they really vary in terms of what's left behind. But I gotta say, the Old Stanley Mansion Ruins are pretty full and intact. There's quite a bit left behind. Now, we will get into the interior later on, but I think what we're going to start with is the exterior. I'm going to do a bit of a loop around the entire perimeter of the exterior, and as we do that, I'll delve into the history and contextual information about the Stanley family, one of the most influential and important families in New Britain's history. So as I mentioned, the Stanley family were one of the original settlers in New Britain. In fact, it dates back all the way to 1644 with the first member, John Stanley. However, the most prominent member of the Stanley family was Frederick T. Stanley. Now, for anyone who lives in the Hartford, Connecticut area, you probably know that New Britain's city nickname is the Hardware City, or Hard-Hittin New Britain. That's what a lot of people call it. Well, that's because Frederick T. Stanley actually co-founded two hardware manufacturing factories. The first one was the Stanley Bolt Manufactory in 1843. And the second one was the Stanley Works Company in 1852. And the Stanley Works Company is by far the most important and well-known of the two. And they basically produced many types of hardware, you know, nuts, bolts, nails, screws. They were a hardware manufacturing company. And that's where New Britain gets its nickname, Hardware City, or Hard-Hittin New Britain. And that's pretty much what brought the Stanley family to fame, especially in the 1800s. And that's about the time that this home was built, in the 1800s. Now, I couldn't find out exactly who owned this home. I just think it was owned by the Stanley family itself. In fact, the Stanley family owned many homes in the New Britain area. This isn't the only one. But unfortunately, I couldn't figure out exactly which family member owned it. I don't know if Frederick T. Stanley owned it or one of his other family members, but I will say the property that this mansion sits on was once part of the Stanley family's estate. Today, completely open to the public. There's many hiking trails and walkways and paths you can take. And in fact, in some of the parks nearby that I mentioned in the beginning, you know, A.W. Stanley Park and Stanley Quarter Park, there are other amenities, baseball fields, soccer fields. Oh, check this out. Fireplace on the other side, that's kind of cool. Now, unfortunately, this mansion suffered from a devastating fire in 1940. It burned down in 1940 and has basically sat abandoned ever since. And you can see all that's left behind now are these stone walls. Looks like it's mostly made out of stone, you know, boulders, maybe some cement or mortar holding it all together. But pretty cool set of ruins. Again, it's pretty full too. I've been to many ruins on this channel. This is one of the most full sets I've explored. But yeah, that's the exterior. I think I'll try to head inside in a second. We can view that, but yeah, pretty cool stuff. Okay guys, so we're officially inside of the ruins itself, which once would have been the interior of the mansion. Pretty cool seeing it from this angle. I will say though, if you want to come here, getting in is a bit of a hassle. There's no actual staircase leading down. I basically just jumped from there down to here. So you got to do a bit of jumping, a bit of hopping. So if you're unable to do that, I would just view it from the exterior. But yeah, this is the interior right here. Pretty cool. It looks a lot more full from the inside. I absolutely love it. I saw this in another video, which I do want to shout out my homeboy, Go Explore, Tom from Go Explore. I've actually done a few videos with him in the past. He did a video here last year, and he mentioned something that's interesting. You might see these little slits in the wall. Actually, I'll do a close-up. These little slits like this. You might notice these all across the wall. So what he thinks is that those actually held a floorboard. So he thinks that there would have been a floorboard up here, and then below it was the actual basement. So down here would have been the basement. Up there would have been the floorboards for the first floor. Kind of makes sense where the windows are placed, where the door is, and if you turn over here, where the fireplace is. So I have to agree with him. I think that these little slits in the wall were the floorboards. So I actually think we're technically standing in the basement right now, or at least the cellar. Pretty cool though. I also did allude to this in the previous segment, but you can see these holes right here are likely where the windows were, peeking out into the beautiful forests, which I assume back then were probably pasture. And then of course the iconic fireplace and chimney. That's one of my favorite things to find in abandoned ruins are fireplaces and chimneys. They just look so cool, especially sitting desolate in the middle of the woods like that. Now the other thing I want to mention, this is kind of the elephant in the room of this spot, but as you can sadly see, it is completely covered in graffiti. I've made my stance on graffiti pretty clear in this channel many times. I don't mind great graffiti, but I do have to say when it comes to historic ruins like this, not a fan of seeing it. In my opinion, that's just the desecration of a historic site. So I do have to say, not a fan of seeing graffiti here. This is a pretty graffiti-covered location. The vandalism is quite heavy. And there's even a lot of random trash and rubbish left behind. Covered in snow, so I can't actually tell what it is, but it's still kind of a shame to see that people have been littering here. Now there's also these little pillars or columns right here. My guess is that these probably held up the floorboards. As I mentioned, there were probably floorboards all around here. I think we're standing in the cellar, and these probably held up the floorboards. That's my guess. Let's peek over here. Look at that. Someone brought a chair down here. It was probably just chilling or vibing right in front of the chimney. I wonder if they ever lit any fires in here, or we're just, you know, sitting, maybe smoking or drinking as the fire was going. I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty vibey place to sit. I can't be too mad at that. Damn, super cool stuff. Okay guys, so before we head out of this little interior area and I climb my way out of it, which is going to be a bit of a hassle, I do just want to take one last look at the inside, because I do have to say this inside portion is definitely my favorite part of the ruins. Really cool to walk around here and see everything. We'll take some close-ups as we do that. One final view of the front fireplace right here, which I looked into it and you can definitely see, yeah, people have been lighting fires here. You know what I mean? Pretty crazy. But let's walk back here one more time. As we do that, I will tell you a little bit more information about the influential Stanley family. So as I mentioned, Frederick T. Stanley, he was the guy who founded the Stanley Bolt Manufactory in 1843, and then the Stanley Works company, which is arguably the better known of the two, in 1852. Now they produced hardware, different types of hardware, you know, nuts, bolts, screws, nails. I think later on they would go on to produce larger tools, but interestingly, the Stanley Works company, unlike many other businesses at the time, you know, which would eventually flounder and die out, they kept going strong. And actually in 2010, the Stanley company officially merged with Black & Decker, which many of you know, Black & Decker is a very, very well-known and popular set of hardware tool makers. So yeah, Stanley and Black & Decker actually merged not too long ago in 2010. All originated right here in New Britain, Connecticut. Yeah, super cool stuff. Now, I also believe that the property that we're currently on, which is open to the public, I believe it was actually leased or ceded to the city of New Britain by the Stanley family in 1928. Now, I wasn't able to exactly figure out which park we're in. As I mentioned, there are two parks adjacent to each other, A.W. Stanley Park and Stanley Quarter Park. I don't actually know which one we're in. I've heard people say this is A.W. Stanley Park, so I guess I'll stick with that. But I will say we're very close to Stanley Quarter Park as well. Either way, they're literally just divided by a road. They're so close together, so I don't think the exact technicalities matter in this case. You're good to park at either one if you want to come here. If you park at A.W. Stanley Park, it's a longer walk. Stanley Quarter Park is a bit of a shorter walk, but either way, it's absolutely beautiful. And we're gonna get back up there. I'll show you the woods. Gorgeous setting. All right, guys, so before I head out, I will just do one final walkthrough, looping around the perimeter of the entire set of ruins. Just give you guys one more view of the exterior. Really cool set of ruins, I gotta say. Again, super full and intact. You can pretty much make out where every part of the house was. I mean, this right here is the back window. You got the chimney. I don't know, super cool stuff. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention too is we're actually on a bit of a hill right now. Might be hard to see on camera, but got a really beautiful vista out there. So I can only imagine back in the 19th century, early 20th century, when this house was still being used, they probably had absolutely stellar views of the Connecticut countryside. Today, completely covered in trees though, because this is a bit of a forest. But yeah, this is the Old Stanley Mansion Ruins, or at least what's left of it. Built sometime in the 1800s, abandoned in 1940 due to a devastating fire. Currently sitting on public property, which was once owned by the Stanley family. Now, obviously, I've gone through a lot of their industrial history. I've even gone through their familial history. One thing I haven't really mentioned, though, is what they've done for the city of New Britain. Now, especially with Frederick T. Stanley, but many of the other members as well, they were pretty prolific philanthropists, and they also championed infrastructure. So a lot of people from New Britain and just the surrounding communities really love the Stanley family and everything they've done for the city. In fact, so many things here in New Britain are named after the Stanley family. As I was driving here, I saw so many things named after them. Obviously the parks, but I saw a baseball field that was named after them. I saw a golf course that was named after them. I mean, again, the Stanley family is a beloved, prominent, and influential family here in New Britain. I'm not trying to glaze them. I'm just telling you how it is. They're very well beloved here. And rightfully so. Again, they've done a lot for the city, a lot of philanthropy. And I'm a big fan of infrastructure personally, so yeah, shout out to Frederick T. Stanley for championing infrastructure here in the city. I think that's super important. But yeah, these were the Old Stanley Mansion Ruins. While I don't know too much about this specific home itself, again, this is one of many homes they owned. It's not the only one. We do know quite a bit about the Stanley family and the legacy they left behind, and in many ways, the set of historic ruins symbolizes everything they left behind here in the city of New Britain. And today you can come and explore it, check it out for yourself, which I would highly recommend you do.
Hey, thank you guys for joining me. I've been J-Mass as always, and this has been another dope New England adventure. And today we explored the historic Old Stanley Mansion Ruins here in the city of New Britain, Connecticut. Today sitting on public property, but was once a privately owned estate by the Stanley family, one of many homes they owned. We're actually even currently on their property that they once owned as well. Again, I don't know which park it's in, but it's in between A.W. Stanley Park and Stanley Quarter Park. Two really beautiful parks with a lot of great amenities. Also, a lot of great hiking trails as well here in the forest. I didn't really mention that, but you can see this is the woods behind me. A lot of great hiking trails, a lot of paths. Getting here is a bit tricky if you don't know where you're going, but again, I would highly recommend check this out if you have a chance. But yeah, these ruins were once a mansion built in the 1800s. We don't know the specific date, but built in the 1800s, destroyed by a fire in 1940. And even though the history and secrets of this home elude us today, we do know the legacy that the Stanley family left behind here in New Britain, from their hardware industry to their infrastructure and philanthropy, to even being just early settlers of the region, all the way back in 1644. Pretty cool stuff. But I'm glad I got to bring you guys along with me and check out these ruins. I've wanted to come here for quite a while now, and even though it is the dead of winter, completely covered in snow, it's pretty enchanting to check out. As always, guys, my name is Jay Mass. If you love urban exploration, checking out abandoned sites, traveling New England and beyond, I'm always doing that on the channel, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. Shout out to all my members, which you can see right here on the screen. I love you guys, and I would love it if you too, viewer, became a member. You'd be supporting me in the channel directly. That would mean a lot to me. Or you can follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But I will catch you guys in the next one. Just wanted to check out these beautiful ruins. One final thing I do want to say, I forgot to mention this. Come on, stop with the graffiti at these historic sites. You guys know I'm not even a graffiti hater. I actually quite like graffiti. I think graffiti's awesome. But it's cool if it's in like abandoned locations like mills and stuff. I guess just seeing it on historical ruins like these that are super exposed, not cool. So please don't graffiti these. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. That's my PSA for the video. Catch you guys later. See ya. Yo, what's going on, MTV? It's Jay Mass, and welcome to my crib. I'm sorry, guys. This is now the second video in a row where I've recycled the same exact joke. I gotta stop, and I really gotta get some more original material. Can you please forgive me, guys? I promise I'll start doing better skits.